Alright guys, let's talk about one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to our class in general. I noticed a lot last year traveling around and watching YouTube videos, doing research for tracks that I was thinking about going to, that we have a serious, how do I say this, vehicle presentation problem. Basically, half the field, and that's being generous, at a lot of these tracks look like they stopped on their way home from the county fair to do roundy round with their demo car, and that's unfortunate. I think you've all noticed at this point that our class doesn't get a ton of respect at the racetrack. I'm sure you've all heard it. Race cars are rear-wheel drive, or race cars are V8s, or blah blah blah. Or you show up at a track and they stuff you in the back corner of the pits where there's one street light and you can't hear the announcements. I think if we want to be respected as a legitimate racing class, and if you want to be respected as race car drivers, that you need to show up with something that resembles a race car. A lot of cars are, don't have a straight panel on them. They got numbers spray painted on. And you can do a lot with spray paint, don't get me wrong, but it's just, a lot of cars, they look rough, okay? And let's be real. What sponsor wants to put their name on something that looks like it's been dragged out of the junkyard? So I'm not here to just rag on everybody, but I'm here to help. So let's talk about it. All right. Obviously, the easiest route would be to pay someone to design a wrap for you and put it on, but that can be pricey. And I understand that a lot of us are running on a budget. I get it. So there's easier ways to do it. Paint is obviously the next option. If you pay someone to design a scheme and paint on your car, that's also going to be expensive. What I tend to do is go on Google and go to images, and I tend to search, I'll type in a couple of different colors and then followed by livery or paint scheme or race car, and then scroll through the images, find something you like, modify it a little bit to your liking, whatever. That's one way to go about figuring it out if you're not that creative. And then there's always the copy, your favorite NASCAR driver thing, which might be a little bit corny, but at least it looks like a race car. This is my car. A lot of you may have seen it on the internet before. The purple on this car is automotive paint, but everything below that is spray paint and brushed on. The only vinyl is the numbers and the sponsors, okay? So we're gonna paint my new car, and we're gonna do it with a roller, foam roller, Home Depot, because that's probably the cheapest and easiest way for you guys to do this. Spraying paint, automotive paint, requires special equipment and technique, but spray paint and whatnot, I think we can all handle that. So we're gonna go paint my new car with a roller and some spray paint. But let's talk about graphics first, okay? Numbers. A spray painted number on your door just looks lazy. And honestly, in my opinion, a single color number on your door looks lazy. To me, it looks unfinished. Like a NASCAR team, at practicing at Daytona in January with a primer car with a number on it. It looks unfinished and it looks lazy. In my opinion, you have to have at least two colors so it stands out on the door. There are very rare occasions where a single color works, like the City Chevrolet from Days of Thunder. But other than that, in my opinion, two colors so it stands up off the door, and make it fit the door. A little 10-inch number in the middle of your door just looks silly. It's got to be proportional, okay? Same thing with sponsors. They should be multiple colors and stand out on the car. And they're paying you to advertise or giving you material or whatever. So their names should stand up off the car. And like I said before, if your car looks like junk, who's going to want to put their name on your car? So when you're playing that budget game, I'm on a budget, well, this is an important part. Make the thing look nice, and then maybe you'll get sponsors. I've had 3 different businesses contact me in the last 2 weeks wanting to get on the car for this season. And so far, everybody on the car is staying on for this season. But I put pride into my car and I make sure it looks good. So let's go paint my new car. All right, so this is my new car. All right, so let's say you've picked out a scheme, you're ready to paint. Your car's got the body on it, the panels are straight or repaired, not all banged up, and you're ready to go and put your first coat of paint on. Step 1, clean it really good. Step 2, take some Scotch-Brite or some really fine sandpaper and scuff the entire car down. Step 3, clean it again. Okay, now, if your main color that you're going to use is lighter than the color of the car you're painting, you are probably going to want to put some primer on first. You can do that with spray paint if you want, it's going to take a lot, or you can get roll-on primer and do it with a foam roller just like you do the paint. A foam roller, not a fibrous fabric one. The fabric ones roll down like rough, you can't get a nice smooth finish with that. It's got to be one of these foam, they call them hot dog rollers things. That's what works best. So this car already has the base color on it. I already did it because I want you guys to be able to see that it's shiny and it actually looks decent. It's smooth. And I did this with a foam roller. Okay? Took a few coats to get good coverage, but I did it with a foam roller. Now, when you go to mix up your first coat of paint, when you're at Home Depot, you want to get some mixing cups, stir sticks. I filled up on here to 20 ounces. Then I thinned it with an ounce of acetone. You probably don't have to thin it, but this Rust-Oleum, at least this Rust-Oleum brand, is kind of thick. So I wanted to lay down smooth and be shiny, so I thinned it with an ounce of that. And then 2 ounces of this. This is hardener, catalyst hardener, enamel hardener. I got this one at Tractor Supply because the Home Depot in my area didn't carry any. But this is kind of important. It says right on here, increases gloss, increases hardness, reduces dry time. That's the important one because that stuff by itself will take like 48 hours to dry enough for you to stick tape on it. It takes forever. With this, it's like a few hours. I mean, usually I just wait overnight, put it on and wait till the next day. I did the last coat on this last night and I came out here at 8 o'clock this morning and it was hard to the touch. It's not wet. So that's that. Mix it up good, pour it in your roller thing, roll it on. When you go to roll it on, you're gonna notice when you start rolling it, you know, you're pushing down, you're rolling the paint onto the car, that the edge of the roller leaves a little line across there, okay? Roll it on, and then come back and just drag the roller across it with no weight, and it'll take those lines out. And then you can get a nice, clean, shiny finish like this. Now, after it's dry, and you're at this point, the next step is this, tape. This is the important part of doing any type of paint scheme. You gotta tape it off in order to get nice clean lines and put your next color on. So when you're going to tape off a stripe or something and it's the full length of the car, you wanna try to pull it in one pull with the tape, not a bunch of pieces because it'll end up not being straight because you're right in front of the car trying to tape it. You're not standing 10 feet away looking at it. Now, if you're worried about what it's gonna look like when you're done, like even from like where you're seeing it from the camera, it looks super smooth and super shiny. And it is pretty smooth and shiny. It's not as smooth and shiny as automotive paint's gonna be with a clear coat or something, but that's pretty shiny. I mean, from the grandstand, it's gonna look great. And as my uncle says, it's only gotta be 50-50. It's gotta look good from 50 feet away at 50 miles an hour. That's it, all right? So I'm gonna tape off so we can do the next color. All right, so we've got it taped off. Quick line down the side of the car for the next level of paint that we're gonna do here. As you can see, I pulled a straight line like I was talking about all the way to the back. And then I came back with a razor blade and trimmed any curves that needed to be trimmed around the back of the car and trimmed out the center of this. Any overlap with the tape came down into the area that we're about to paint. Got trimmed off with a razor blade. And at this point, you're ready to put your next color on. Now, if you put your base color on and you let it sit for a month before you went to the next color, you're probably going to want to scuff that down again before you put your next color on. But because this is so fresh, it should stick just fine. So I'm going to mix up some paint. Now, all right, so the white's on. And something I forgot to mention before, when I mixed up the 20 ounces of paint, that was enough to do about one coat on the entire car. Now when I did this here, I only mixed about half of that, mixed about 10 ounces, and it was a little short of being able to do 2 coats. But I did 1 coat on this side, all the way around the back of the car to the other side, came back around, did a 2nd coat on this side, and almost had enough to do the back of the car, but I had enough to do both sides. So 2 coats of white, surprisingly, seems to be enough to cover the red. I didn't mix acetone in at that time. I just wanted to see how it would lay down and what kind of coverage it would get because it was white. And it seems to be okay. It's fairly smooth and shiny. I did put hardener in it. So now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to wait until tomorrow morning to go to the next step. At the next step, we're going to switch over to spray paint to do the fine details and stuff into the design. But that's it. You got two colors. Put on with a roller. You see it laying right there next to the tire. Not hard. You know, you find some spots like around the taillights and the door jambs where body lines and stuff come together, where the roller can't quite get in. It's pretty good with the foam getting into some spaces, but you might want to use a brush in those areas or spray paint. If you got spray paint the same color, you can dust around the tail light housings and whatnot to get in there good, because the roller just kind of makes a mess, makes runs and stuff. So a little bit of spray paint or maybe a brush to get in there and do those spots. But overall, simple. It's easy. With the roller, you don't really got to worry about overspray going on everything else, as long as you're watching what you're doing and you don't go over the tape onto the paint that you want to keep on the other side of the tape. It's fairly clean, and it doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take a ton of skill, and it comes out pretty nice. I mean, that's decent coverage. So next step is more taping, and then we'll move on to some spray paint. All right, so it's the next day, and the white's dry. We went overnight. It's dry to the touch, but it's still soft enough that if you put your fingernail in it, you can scratch it and peel it off with your fingernail. So it's dry enough to tape, but the softness is actually good because when we go to spray paint, it'll help the paint to adhere better. As you can see, I put some plastic over the car to help with the overspray, because spray paint tends to get everywhere. And yes, a side skirt magically appeared overnight. After I put this yellow on, I'm actually going to give it a few hours to dry. Spray paint tends to dry pretty quick, but I'm going to give it a few hours to dry because I actually need to tape on top of this yellow before we do the last color, which is black. And then that's it. So, all right, we are taped off to the black now. It's been a few hours. So just a stripe. So there's not a whole lot of car left visible now. Everything's pretty much covered up. But I'm gonna get the black on, and then we're gonna untape it and see what we got. All right, there you go. That's what we got. I'll admit the checkers are not paint. I got a cheap vinyl on eBay. It was like 30 bucks, and then I just modified it to fit what we were doing here. I could have taped it off. I've done them before. Just time, and time is money. 35 bucks was cheaper for me personally. But it looks good, man. I mean, Rust-Oleum roll-on, a little bit of spray paint. The tape is really key to getting your design on your car. And then, you know, all the small stuff. You know, I got a nose piece, headlight decals, side window covers. I normally make a little cover here where the mirror used to be. I run a sun visor. I got rub rail there for the bottom of the nose piece, some yellow stuff to match along with the rest of the paint scheme here. Those small things make a difference. They make the car look finished. You know, these guys got, you know, their rivet panels on their door, different color than their door. They get different color fender than a different color door. Like, it looks bad. So put the time in, make the car look nice. You'll be surprised how much easier it is to get sponsors when your car looks good. And let's be real here. We got promoters and sanctioning bodies out there landing us some big races. Bristol, Winter Freeze, King of Compacts, big money races. And we kind of owe it to those guys to show up with something that resembles a race car. They're out there trying to legitimize the class. They're putting in the work. We can put in a little bit of work and bring at least 80% of a field of cars that look like race cars and not glorified enduro cars and demo cars. Okay, it's just, respect is earned. You got to earn the respect. If you want to go to the track and be respected as a racer, bring something that looks like a race car. Okay. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with for your paint schemes. I know a whole bunch of you have been all over Facebook asking for sponsorship. This is the first step. So good luck this season.